Hello and welcome to the next part of our character creation, and it's the fun one, weapons and armour. Not quite as fun as cybernetics, but we'll get there. Very quickly, there's a few different weapon categories. You've got melee weapons, which are close range, swords, axes, clubs, hammers, anything that you use to batter an enemy to death with, that's a melee weapon. Ranged weapons, that can be assault rifle, pistol, crossbow, bow and arrow, whatever it may be. That's your ranged weapons. And exotic weapons are weird weapons. Anything that's a bit strange. If you've ever watched The Simpsons and they have the gun meeting, and Moe pulls out his Killer 3000 that's loaded guns duct taped together, that would probably be an exotic weapon. So each weapons they have different attributes that go to them. So you can see here that a melee weapon, you've got the melee weapon types. What classification is it? It gives a few examples as to what that might be. Number of hands required to actually swing it, what amount of damage that it does, rate of fire, so that's how many times it can be swung with a single action. It might be concealed, so can you actually hide it under a trench coat or something like that, and how much it costs in eddies, in euro bucks. So if we look here, we can see an example of a table. You've got light, medium, heavy, and very heavy melee weapons. And basically any melee weapon will fall under that category in some way, shape or form. What it actually looks like is entirely up to you and your GM. Speak to them and say, if you've got an idea for a baseball bat with a brick sellotape to it, that's fine, you can do that, and then it's just up to you and the GM to determine, okay, mechanically, is that a light weapon, is it a medium weapon, and what damage and rate of fire it actually has to it. So you can see here we've got some examples. So of a light melee weapon, you've got combat knife, tomahawk, and you can see number of hands required. That varies. Again, that'll be down to your GM to decide. If the brick that you've got sellotaped to the baseball bat is particularly heavy, they might say, well, you're probably going to need 2 hands to properly wield that. It's up to their discretion. Damage, so what's the actual damage output of it? So 1d6, 2d6, 3d6, or 4d6. The rate of fire, so again, how many times can it be swung with a single attack? So in this case, a light melee weapon you can swing 2 times, so effectively getting 2d6 damage out of it. Can it be concealed? Yes or no, depending on it. And then how much it costs there. So you can see 50 eddies, roughly, for a light melee weapon. So now we're on to ranged weapons. And the list is very similar to a melee weapon. The only difference being here is that you can see weapon skill, because different ranged weapons have different skills applying to them, unlike melee weapons. How much damage a single shot from it, a single bullet or arrow does. And standard magazine, what size is a standard magazine in it before you need to reload. Rate of fire, number of hands required, concealed. And the only other difference here is alternate fire modes and special features. So does the weapon have like an underslung grenade launcher or a bayonet or something like that attached to it that gives it a different functionality if you choose to use it. So if we go to the next here, we can see the table, and we can see some examples here. So you got medium pistols, heavy pistols, very heavy pistols. Again, the actual look of these is entirely up to you. I always picture, if my character has a very heavy pistol, sort of like a Dirty Harry special, a big Magnum revolver, that's just what I picture. But some people might think of a very heavy pistol as like some really ultra cyberpunk technical device thing that fires out these big slugs. That's fine, you can picture and have any type of weapon you want. It just needs to mechanically fall under one of these categories. And again, speak to your GM and they'll tell you, okay, well, that's a very heavy pistol, or maybe that's an SMG, or whatever it may be. And you can see here weapon skill, handguns, which from SMG to pistol is a handgun. Shotguns, assault rifles, sniper rifles are all shoulder arms. Crossbows and bows are archery, and grenade launcher and rocket launcher are heavy weapons. You've then got the single shot damage, the magazine size, so yeah, you need to keep a track of that whenever you're firing rounds, that if you run out of magazine you will then need to reload. Rate of fire, same as melee, how many times can you fire in a single action, hands required, and can it be concealed. So if we go down here, the first one, which actually has an alternate fire mode or special feature, is an SMG, which has an auto fire of 3. We'll cover all that whenever we get to how combat works and things like that. But it also has then suppressive fire. as well. And last but not least, the ranged weapon ammunition. You need ammo for all of your weapons, and as a general rule of thumb, it costs about 10 eddies per 10 units. So whether that's 10 shotgun shells or 10 bullets, whatever it may be. And now onto the exotic weapons. So an exotic weapon is a very, very rare weapon. Usually it's down to the GM to issue these out. It is very rare that a GM is going to give you one of these right out of the bat, depending on what it is. Maybe a dart gun or something like that, but generally not. These are things that are going to be they're found as prizes for the most part. And here are some examples. This is not an exhaustive list. Your GM can come up with other exotic type weapons or specialist weapons and things like that, and I'm sure there are entire subreddits already filled with exotic weapons. So basically they are a standard weapon that it will say what it is. So you can see here the Constitution Arms Hurricane assault weapon is basically a shotgun, but it's a shotgun that has a double rate of fire. So instead of being able to take one shot, which a standard shotgun can do, this can do 2 in a turn. So it's a pretty strong weapon to have. And some of them come with requirements. So in this case you need a body of 11 plus to fire. So if my tech got his hands on this, he would not be able to fire it because it's just too unwieldy and too heavy to fire. Something to note about weapons is that they have attachment slots. They typically have 3, and you can upgrade them with various things. So as I said, like a bayonet or a smart gun link or something like that. There's a separate table of what upgrades are available and attachments are available for a weapon. If you want to start the game with an attachment on your weapon, it will come out of your money, which we will get to when we start to actually get into how you get your starting equipment. Armour. So in the armour table we have armour type, description, stopping power, armour penalty, and cost. So out of these, generally stopping power is the point that you want to keep an eye on, and armour penalty is basically how much protection it gives you, and the armour penalty is how restrictive it is to move in. You may have like a very heavy armoured Metal Gear armour on, but you're not going to be able to move very fast, or you're not going to be very dexterous when you're wearing it, so it will have a penalty to wearing it, but it will have very good stopping power to it. So if we look at the armour type table, you've got leathers, Kevlar, light armour jack, body weight suit, medium armor jack, heavy, flak, Metal Gear, and a bulletproof shield. The shield works a little bit differently, we'll talk about that in a second. But as you can see here, you get a brief description of what that armor looks like. Again, how it looks to you, it is up to yourself, but functionally it has to fall in one of these categories. And the amount of stopping power applied, so leathers have relatively little stopping power compared to the likes of light armor jack or a body weight suit. A body weight suit is typically worn by a net runner, and these, as you can see, have no armor penalties, but as soon as you get into medium armor jack, you start to get minuses to your reflex, dexterity, and movement speed, because it's harder to move about in. The heavier armor you go to, the larger that penalty is. So you can see here, flak vests take a -4, the Metal Gear -4. The bulletproof shield, you hold that in your off hand, so you can only hold it if you have a hand free, and it's basically like a riot shield, and it has hit points. So whereas this is an armor rating, which we'll talk about how armor ratings work in combat whenever we get to that, but this bulletproof shield has effectively hit points, and if it's reduced to 0, it is destroyed. We'll talk about how they work, and we'll use some examples of that when we get to the combat section. So how do you actually get your equipment? So for a Street Rat and Edge Runner, you guessed it, you pick from a template. So you can see here we have Rocker Boy, Solo, Netrunner, and Tech. We'll take a look at the Tech. But another point to note is that you get these items, that's what you have. It's easy as that, you just copy them onto your character sheet. But you also have 500 eddies to spend on other items or to keep. So you can buy other things. You do have a bit of cash that you can go to the market section in the book, and you can pick up some extra bits and pieces if you want some extra ammunition or whatever else. But generally speaking, the bulk of your kit comes from here. So you can see here that there is an ore. So in my tech weapons, it's a shotgun or assault rifle. If I was doing the Street Runner or Edge Runner template, I would pick shotgun because that's just what I picture him with. And again, basic shotgun cells or rifle ammunition, depending on what one you pick He gets a flashbang grenade, light armor jack, and light armor jack head armor. So the armor is broken down into two parts. You've got body and head, so you need to buy both if you want to be fully protected. And if you don't mind about having your head open, you don't need to get the head armor, but I would recommend it. So before we move on to how the complete package gets all his gear, the last thing that the Street Rat and Edge Runners get is an outfit and gear, and again it's you pick from a template. So the tech outfit here, he's got an agent, anti-smog breathing mask, disposable cell phone, some duct tape, flashlight, road flares, etc. And it also gives his fashion, so he's got generic chic bottoms and tops, 8 and 10, and some leisure footwear. And that is basically their sort of everyday carry, stuff that they've got with them all the time. And so that's another thing that you will just get from the start. Okay, so as a complete package, how do you get all of your gear? Well, you get handed a load of money. So you get 250 Eurobucks, or sorry, 2,550 Eurobucks to buy any weapon, armor, gear, cyberware that you want. So in the Street Rat and Edge Runner, you'll know that you have 500 eddies left, and that's what you'll use whenever you want to go on to the next section, which is buying cyberware, which we will talk about in the next video. But in this one, you have 2,550 Eurobucks, but that includes everything. So that's your weapons, that's your equipment. So if you blow it all now on weapons and ammunition and stuff like that, you won't have any money left to get cyberware. Whereas the templates, you just have 500 quid for cyberware straight away, no problems. As a complete package, you go through, you can see on the page here, it tells you which page to go to get the various bits and pieces. You then go back and buy all of the kit that you want, and you're not limited. You can buy whatever you want, as little or as much as you want, but you have to bear in mind that you're going to need food, you're probably going to need a sleeping bag of some shape or form, a weapon at least, maybe 2 ammunition for that weapon, an agent. The costs add up really, really quickly. There's a lot of stuff that you're probably going to want to have to make a usable character. So bear that in mind, but also bear in mind that the next thing that we're going to do is buy some cyberware. So I'm going to buy all of my kit off screen, but you can see an example here that they've got in the book of some of the stuff that Jay, which is the example character they've been making, has went with. So you've got an assault rifle, heavy SMG and a melee weapon, so you've got quite a bit of stuff in there. So I'm going to go through and buy all of my kit, and then I'll show you what I got. Okay, so we're back, and I've bought all my gear. So we've got a computer, a carry-all, agent, anti-smog breather, 5 duct tapes, some food sticks, flashlight, sleeping bag, memory chips, personal care pack, tech bag, and tech tool. And this is all bought out of that £2,555 or eddies that you have to buy your gear from. However, something that's worth noting, for complete package characters you get an additional 800 eddies that is only there to spend on fashion wear, so clothes and fashion equipment and stuff like that. It does not stay on, so this doesn't add on to the 2,000 that you already had. This is 800 eddies that you can spend on fashion, and anything you don't spend is lost, so you may as well spend all 800 of it and get some extra clothes and whatnot. I did not push the boat out. I got some Asia pop trousers because that is my clothing style, tops and bottoms, just 3 pairs each, and a set of mirror shades. That's all I got with it, so I had some left over that is now lost. Of my 2,000 that I have 620 eddies left, which I can then put into cyberware and have some money left over, potentially, depending on how we go. Something to point out, whenever you fill this out, do fill out in the notes, add some information about the items. I haven't here, I'll fill this in offline, but add in that flashlight gives X amount of light whenever it's turned on, or things like that. So that's it, that's all our gear bought and ready to go. Actually, as you can see here, I've also got my weapons. So I got a heavy pistol and shotgun and light armor jack. And if we go back down here, you see I've got ammunition, 50 bullets and 50 slugs for each of them. And that's my weapons and armor ready as well. So that's us ready to go and start getting into cyberware. I'm going to do that in the next and last video. on character creation, and then we'll have a full character ready to rock and roll.